Not long ago, 3 astronauts named Neil, Buzz, and Mike set off for the moon. Unlike the spacefarers before them, 2 of these men were going a giant step further. They landed on the moon. For about 2.5 hours, Neil and Buzz explored the lunar surface, taking samples and pictures. What an achievement for rocket science, for space exploration, for the human race, and for photography. An astronaut not only walked on another world, he recorded the stroll. Later Apollo missions followed the example, capturing mind-blowing images in space and on the lunar surface. They used a camera in particular, made in Sweden, that came to be known as the Apollo camera. This is the story of how that Swedish camera made it to the moon. Hello from Gothenburg. My name is Leilan from the European Space Agency, and today we're in Sweden's second largest city to dig up some photos. Moon photos, to be exact. Gothenburg has a rich industrial and cultural history. Volvo was founded here in 1927. So many famous Swedish pop bands come from Gothenburg, including the only one I recognize from my childhood, Ace of Base. But Gothenburg is also home to Victor Hasselblad, who was an industrialist and most popularly known as the maker of the camera that was used on the moon. Now, raise your hand if you thought Hasselblad was German. Americans. To find out more about how a Swedish camera ended up on the moon, we're going to be speaking to the nice folks at the Hasselblad Foundation. Elsa, a historian, and Gunnar, a camera technician who worked on the Apollo-era camera, walk me through Hasselblad history. Hasselblad made a name in the camera industry by selling and developing film. Their first go at actually developing a camera was during World War II. So here we have one of the first cameras that the Hasselblad company built, which was an aerial camera, and it was commissioned by the Swedish military. But Victor Hasselblad dreamed of making a civilian camera, and after a few failed prototypes, managed it in the late 1950s.
But here you can see Victor Hasselblad in 1957. The camera was released in New York as well as the very first one, so you can see that's the
500C.
While the landmark Hasselblad 500C cameras were highly sought after in the 1960s, the idea of sending one to space was more of an afterthought. Ove Bengtsson, product manager at Hasselblad, explains how one astronaut's hobby led to the company's professional relationship with NASA.
In the first Gemini missions, they didn't bring a camera. On the second mission, they brought a tourist kind of camera, and they were very disappointed with the result. So they put together a team of engineers and astronauts, and one of the guys in that team was Walter Schirra. Luckily, he was an amateur photographer. He had his own Hasselblad. So he said to NASA, why don't we use this one? They were super happy with the results.
The results are some of the most iconic images of all time. Earthrise, the Eagle landing, man's footprint on the moon. But you can't simply send something to space without first qualifying it for spaceflight. Gunnar explains some of the technical adjustments made to the cameras to make them fit for space. So the normal civilian models for on the ground had a viewfinder,
yes,
but they took that away for the models that flew into space. Why is that?
For it's heavy, maybe, and you have a visor. You can't look at the in camera.
It takes a lot of fuel to send something to space, so weight is very carefully considered. A heavy viewfinder is no use to an astronaut wearing a spacesuit and a chest-mounted camera. What else was modified? You might have noticed crosses on images on the moon. That's because of this, a Rousseau plate. This plate was inserted between the lens and the film, and whenever a picture was taken, the crosses from the plate would be exposed on the film and appear on the photo. They were used to help determine distance. All but one Hasselblad camera remained on the moon. A malfunctioning 500EL used during Apollo 15 was sent back for troubleshooting. Gunnar worked on the Moon Dusty model, making sure to save as much of the dust as he could. He's one of the few humans to have a sample in his possession.
Little container. Very, very little. Okay. That is moon dust.
But enough about the cameras. Let's see some of the photos. Hasselblad received copies of the negatives from NASA, which they keep housed at the National Archive in Gothenburg.
And this is maybe the coolest of them all, the Apollo 11.
Time to geek out to some photos. Astronauts were extensively trained on the cameras and photography techniques, and it shows. Amazing slice of lunar history right here in Sweden. The first photographs from space weren't just scientifically and historically valuable. They were great PR for NASA and the space program, for environmentalism, but perhaps above all for human imagination and potential. Never before had humans been treated to an alien's view of their home, or, after Apollo 11, to another world altogether. And we want to see more. Not long from now, astronauts will return to the moon. And like the spacefarers before them, they will record the journey and take us along with them. From our view on Earth, it may seem like we're taking the same small steps. But looking out from the moon to Mars and beyond, it's clear that this is where we take another giant leap.